Okay, we praise God for this opportunity for you. We are going to start the subject that we are introducing, which is concerning uh, the analytic theology of general epistles. That we want to understand what God revealed us in this book of Hebrew, because by the last lesson we have introduced our first topic as the general introduction, and really we are going to start to introduce the book of Hebrew, um, and by introducing this book, we welcome all of you, especially students for master's class of African Ministries Outreach, that they may understand very well what we are going to teach about. And by introduction of Hebrew, we just remind you the very short summary of what we have spoken lastly. And if you can understand what we have spoken lastly, maybe you can come on this point that we are going to discuss together. Just we welcome all of you, African Ministries Outreach student, master's program, especially, and in general, all the Christians, believers, and everybody who can follow Jesus, a follower of Jesus, that can understand this introduction. um, we are just focusing on the introduction, the general introduction, as you understood. The period that this book was written, it was books of general epistles, as we have spoken to the last lesson. It was written in the period that the Christian church was put under persecution. If we speak persecution, I think you understand. There have been a political influence in this persecution and religious movement that influenced also the persecution. I cannot come back to that. And especially most of Christians, because of the suffering and the acts that Christians were passed through into prison, others killed, condemned, and so on. So most of them, they were about to backslide, and the church was in danger in that period. And that even the Christian was scattered out. And also what is positive is that it is in that period that the gospel also spread, because everywhere they went after they scattered, they were witnessing the good news of Jesus. So by this book of Hebrew, we cannot discuss more in master's program. We cannot discuss more concerning the authorship of Hebrew. As a master's student, only you understand that there is no known writer or author of the book of Hebrew. It is not Paul, as most of people describe that it is Paul. But after research and research, all scholars, they are agreeing together according to the fact that we found in the period where the book was written. It is not Paul, but really it can be one of the associated to Paul, if it is Barnabas, if it is Gamaliel, if it is and so on. But one of the associated of them can be the writer of this book. And also you can understand that it is the book of Hebrew. It's like a sermon. It is like a sermon, because you can see the speaker is introducing himself to the church, and he's just there's some kind of exhortation, and also he's trying to put them on a good point that they cannot. Is also there is some kind of encouragement to Christian, and supporting them in good decision that they have taken to follow Jesus. By this book of Hebrew, maybe we can develop three major points by this book of Hebrew. when you will be passing, because before we introduce week 3, you will understand that this video is between week 2 and week 3, that I want you to understand and analyze very carefully, that you can listen something about it. So by the way, I am coming to this point that by introduction, it is related to the Old Testament. The introduction of the author related this book to the Old Testament. He has spoken that by the old time, by the last time, the author spoken that by the last time, the way God was spoken, the way God was speaking to people, for example, by event, by sending the angels, the way of using dreams, and also by prophets. And God also has spoken, for example, through Moses, through prophets, sending angels, the way of dreams, some event, and so on. So God was addressing himself to people by this way. The second sub-point of this first point is that the author introduced the book of Hebrew by saying, by this time now, God has revealed himself to people through Jesus Christ. So the present day, our period now, from Christ up to now, God has revealed himself to people through Jesus Christ. So this is the introduction of the book of Hebrew. If you can analyze and read, maybe you will find it. So we can find by the very first point of chapter 1, verse 1, and coming to verse 2, and you can understand what the author is how the author is introducing himself this subject. And he's saying that Christ is the final revelation of God to people. In short, Christ is the final revelation of God to people. This is the first point. Secondly, we understand that the second point, that it is the comparative facts that the author is introducing. The first audience, the people from Judah, and coming from Jewish religious movement, related to the people from other nations. They are together in the church. So the people from Judah, or Israelite people, they respect much Moses. They respect much the prophets. They respect much the angels, and they believe 100% that really God has spoken through these people, addressing to us. But the author is telling these people that even though, but you need to understand one point, that God has made Christ better than Moses, than the prophet, than the angels. So God is better, or is the most one than these all people that you give much respect, and even better than the priests. And this is what the comparative method, that fact that the author was using. He's saying that, okay, you respect Moses, you respect the angels, you respect the prophets, you respect the priests, but let me tell you something. Is the respect that you give to all these people, Moses, prophets, angels, the priests, you need to mention one point, that Jesus has been better, has been made better than all of this. Than all of this. Jesus has been made better than them. So God has put him in a very high rank. That is the second point. Third and the last point on this is that this individual rank of Jesus Christ, it was we needed to know the importance of this individual rank of Jesus. First of all, the first important is that it is the fulfillment of the Old Testament and also the practice of the new revelation. So the Old Testament was emphasizing on the law, but also it was the shadow of what is coming. If we speak the law, Jesus says, come and say, I didn't come to destroy, but I have come to put it very straight. So he was the only one who could modify and explain clearly what it was about and now what is the truth. So nobody has fulfilled the law from the Old Testament, but Jesus has brought salvation by grace. This is only the major message that is there. So to backslide from Christianity to Judaism was just to reject the message of the grace and come back to the message of the legalists. That was, in short, it was that the people, when the Christ followers was teaching the grace and show them that the grace is the better way of getting salvation and not the law, and say that this grace has been given to us for free by Jesus Christ. So people tried to disturb Christianity in that period by bringing to them the message of the law. The law that was not fulfilled, and nobody has respected the law. That was it. Secondly, the kingship of Jesus Christ. Jesus, the second, if you say second, it is the second subpoint of the third point. Jesus was the King of Kings because the king of this earth was selected by either by God or by people, but mentioned that their kingdom was limited. But with one king, that Jesus is considered like the most high, the eternal king, and it is to fulfill what we call Davidic covenant. God has promised David and say this, your kingdom will be forever. So David, God has said, nobody will take you off from your kingdom. But what was just disturbing is this. When Jesus came, there is nobody from the descendants of David or Solomon who was on the kingship. In fact, Israel and Judah was under Roman Empire. So it is a fact, a very good point that shows that the kingdom that God was promising David was not the kingdom of this earth. It was the kingdom of heaven. It was the kingship of heaven. So the throne of David, the everlasting throne of David, was not that God was speaking to David that your throne will be the everlasting one. So God was telling David that, but it was not the kingdom of this earth, but it was the one from high. Secondly, we can see the priesthood of Jesus Christ. First, we see that the priest was coming from Levis. But if you can see, Jesus was coming from Judah, but priests. So the author of the book of Hebrew is showing that the priesthood of Jesus Christ is very special. Is on the rank of Melchizedek. You know, Melchizedek was the king, both king and priest of Israel. And we see that Abraham has offered the special offering to Melchizedek. And from that we can see and understand what is taking place. That the priesthood, the kingship of Jesus, and the priesthood of Jesus is not the one of the earth, but it is the one from heaven. So it is the eternal King, the Most High King, and the everlasting King, the Most High Priest, and the everlasting Priest. So, and mostly, the author of this book was reminding people the prophecy of the Psalms, and saying that today, if you listen my voice, never harden your hearts. So today, if you listen my voice, never harden your heart. Today, if you listen my voice, never harden your heart. Because God was telling them, the author, because they was about to backslide. So God was telling them that today, if you listen my voice, never harden your heart. Because if you don't care about this grace, if you don't care about the chance that God has given to us, you are into failure. So this is the lesson that we are going off. So we are welcome all of you. You can like, you can subscribe for the next subjects. May God bless you and welcome. Thank you.